Hey, Clemson family, the Tigers have a ton of talent lined up to join the defense in the 2023 recruiting class. That begins with early signing day a week from Wednesday.
I'm Daniel Shirley. Tigers going to need all that talent too, with so many guys possibly leaving for the NFL. We'll know more about that after the bowl game. But this talent is going to be a big time bonus for this Tigers team in 2023.
Yep, whenever they hit the field and they are ready, they are going to be very good. I'm confident. I'm Bill Zimmerman, and welcome to episode 49 of the Reign Supreme Alway podcast. Really appreciate that thousands of you who've been making us one of your sources for analysis of the Tigers in 2022. Moving on into 2023, we're on the major podcast apps, and we're at youtube.com/Clemson Kickoff. Go ahead and give us a subscribe or a follow. We'll keep you posted all the time. Let's dig into this defensive class. We'll get into the offense in our next episode, but Wes Goodwin and Mickey Kahn have 13 guys lined up, and I look top to bottom on this list, and I just see contributors everywhere, starting quality talent. You hope that it's going to pan out that way. Sometimes guys take a little longer to reach the field. Sometimes they don't stick at Clemson forever. We'll get into that down the road as well. But I look around and I see one of the best defensive classes in the country right here.
And it feels like one of the best defensive front classes that Clemson's had. I know there have been good defensive fronts for this program for a long time. Bill, you and I grew up on great defensive fronts for Clemson in the 80s, and then that's continued recently. But this group is strong, and I can't wait to see what these guys bring to the team. And, I know everybody's going to start with Peter Woods, and that makes sense. If you saw the videos of him at the Alabama-Mississippi All-Star game this past week, my goodness, just throwing guys left and right. But I'm really excited about this Georgia group, Vic Burley and Jamal Anderson at linebacker. Those guys I'm really, really excited to see what they can bring. I've seen a lot of Vic during his high school career. He goes to Warner Robins, which is about 20 minutes away from where I live, and I've gone to a lot of his games. He is a talented guy, and big and strong and physical, and you just love what he brings to the team. But I'm really excited about Jamal Anderson. I can't wait to watch him play. He had a huge game in the state championship game Saturday, big play after big play, and I think he's going to be a terrific player for this team, as a lot of these guys are. I mean, you could go down the list of names here and say, okay, well, that guy's going to contribute, and that guy's going to contribute. And front to back, too. I just think there's so much talent in this defensive group.
6 defensive linemen, all in the same class, currently committed. Just got to hold those commits down as we record this for about 9 more days. Peter Woods expected to enroll early. He's probably going to be a defensive tackle. There's some talk that he could fill some of the gaps that are going to be left at end as a freshman. We've seen Christian Wilkins in the past recruited as a tackle and able to move out to end for a season. That was his sophomore year. May see it a little earlier for Woods. Fellow commit Tomarrion Parker is the only guy of 3 defensive ends who's expected to enroll early in January. So Woods might be able to provide a little help there. Vic Burley, the other defensive lineman who's going to enroll early as well. You mentioned Jamal Anderson. He's expected to come in early. Fellow linebacker D. Crayton also expected to come in early, and then safety Kylan Webb. But getting back to that front 7, you're also looking to add 3 more defensive linemen in the summer. A.J. Hoffler at end, David Ojigbe at end, and Stephalon Green at tackle. A little tougher to find pronunciations on these guys. I hope I'm getting them right. Apologies if I am not. But a very deep front 7, 6 defensive linemen, 2 linebackers. So 8 guys, 5 of them coming in early. You can really replenish things where you lose a lot of defensive ends. You lose a couple of defensive tackles. You lose a key linebacker, very likely, in Trenton Simpson. You've got Vontae Bentley, one of the reserves who already is in the portal. Sergio Allen didn't really play this year, but he's in the portal already. Someone who wouldn't be able to ascend. We had the recent transfer portal entry of Kevin Swint. We're waiting to see what Justin Maskell decides. Miles Murphy is expected to go very high in the draft. Brian Brzee expected to go very high in the draft. Tyler Davis expected to go to the NFL draft as well. Waiting here on Xavier Thomas. KJ Henry is slated to play in the Senior Bowl, which is a strong signal that he will be in the NFL draft as well. So any immediate contributions that can happen out of that group, especially at end, would be key for the 2023 season. You just hate to bank on it from any one guy in particular.
You mentioned KJ Henry. He's the perfect example. He was a 5-star, remember, and he was going to come in and contribute right away. And he was one of the best players in the country. And it took him some time, and that's okay. But by the end of his career, he looked like a 5-star. This year, he was terrific throughout the season and probably the most consistent defensive lineman that Clemson had the entire season. I just feel like you've got to give these guys time to develop. They will develop at their own pace, but they need a couple of these guys to be ready to play. And I would be shocked if Woods isn't a contributor right away. I would think Burley probably is. And look, you don't want to overlook any of them because who knows which one of these guys is going to come in and be ready. And like you said, there's so many of them, you don't want to look past any of them. Parker's a great player. Hoffler's a great player. Jigby's a great player. Green's a great player. They're all considered to be really talented guys. So I wouldn't be surprised if any of them come in and contribute, and maybe a couple of them take a little bit longer, and that's fine. And Bill, I think that's also one reason why you obviously try to stack so much talent in this class. This was a position of need on the defensive line, and you go out and get 6 or 7 of them, and we'll see if any more are added. Some of them have to work out, right? Just by the law of averages, a couple of these guys are going to be stars. So I think that's why you see the strategy that this coaching staff took with this class.
It'll be interesting to see, especially at end, if they mix in anyone from the portal. I don't think they'll need to mix in portal guys at tackle because you've got Peyton Page expected back next year. Ruka could come back. Hard to say what he's going to do. I'm a big fan of DeMonte Capehart. I think he's going to be ready to rise to the occasion.
Big fan of Trey Williams, too. What a disruptor he is when he's fully healthy, much like Davis.
And then you'll have these young guys as well, very, very highly regarded, Woods being one of them, Burley being another, who's a distant relative of defensive tackles coach Nick Eason. So pretty good to get him in the fold. Stephon Green, very highly regarded. By the way, one of 9 defensive commits out of the state of Georgia. May need a little more time to develop into a tackle. He's running about 270, depending on where you look right now. You might want a little more bulk right there. But again, tons of talent in the group expected to return this year. I don't think you have to reach into the portal there. I think defensive end could be one, depending on some of the decisions of guys like Justin Maskell and Xavier Thomas, and just not knowing the development of guys like Cade Denoff, Zaire Patterson, and Jaheim Lawson. You may need to look for more talent there, but again, over the long haul, this class of 6 defensive linemen plus the 2 linebackers really looking good. And now let's get into the secondary a little bit. The guy I'm most excited about is Aveion Terrell. Familiar name there to Clemson fans, AJ Terrell, his older brother.
He was a terrific player for corners coach Mike Reed. He's been fantastic in the NFL after the Atlanta Falcons made him a first-round draft pick. AJ's putting that Clemson coaching to use as a pro, so you hope there's a bit of a head start for Aveion there. Knowing what Clemson is about through his brother's experience, knowing what Reed will expect, and how his coaching can pay off. So combine that with the fact that Aveion is just a very highly lauded talent in his own right, both as an athlete and on the football field. The sky is just the limit for him.
This is a great group in the secondary. I know there's some talk about maybe adding another safety out there or cornerback or whatever. But I think if this is who they have with this secondary group, I think you'd be okay with that, right? I think Terrell is terrific. Strozier, I'm really excited about him. The 2 safeties, Billings and Webb, I think are both really talented guys. Maybe not 5 stars or anything like that, but I think they can really bring something to this team and will be kind of what we've seen in the past from Clemson's defensive back. So really excited about what they bring to the group.
Safety will definitely be a position of need next year for the Tigers, especially with depth, but maybe a guy can jump in quick and compete for a starting job. You never know. Waiting to see what Jalen Phillips will decide. Kylan Webb is a safety in this signing class, currently committed to Clemson and is expected to report early. Billings is supposed to be a summer enrollee from everything I'm seeing. Early enrollee information can change at the last minute, so we'll know more about that on early signing day. And then once January enrollment does come around, we'll have that list finalized. Then the three corners obviously would have a shot to get out there as well. Aveion, Terrell, Shelton, Lewis, and Brandon Strozier, even though all will be coming as summer signees or are currently expected to, could have a chance to get out there pretty quick. We did see the nice interception in the ACC championship game by true freshman Jaden Lucas. We've also seen some nice play out of Toriano Pride during the year, that familiar number 23 in the defensive backfield. So we'll see. We know the opportunity will be there, and we know Mike Reed is very capable of developing guys.
He is. I love what Coach Reed has done with this program and what he's done with these defensive backs. And I can't wait to see what those young guys who are already in the program bring and step up and add to the program next year. And these guys, this class that we've talked about. I think you're looking at a kind of a reset of the secondary moving forward. It just feels like it's time for the young guys on the team to kind of step up. But then this group coming in can really add something to the team. So I'm really looking forward to that. And I like this group. I like what Coach Reed has done with the cornerbacks for sure. And I think he's got some more good ones coming.
This just feels like a group where if you had to, you could eventually feel the starting 11 just out of this, other than the fact that you've only got two linebackers in there and two safeties. So it's not like you're going to create that sort of Isaiah Simmons spot out of that group. Who knows, though? I mean, this is just, I look up and down this line. I don't see project guys. I don't see, well, you take him, you see something in him, you hope he can develop. There's no Ajo in this group, right? Like everything that these guys do just makes them look like future starters. Like you said, a couple of future stars just by the law of averages is going to come out of this group. Time will tell, of course, but by 2025, right around Halloween, I think we're going to be feeling pretty good about this class of 2023.
Hey, let's play with 6 defensive linemen. Let's do it. I like it. Let's get after the quarterback and play with 6 defensive linemen. But I like this group, Bill. I do. Again, I'm with you. I think there's a lot to like with what you see. Obviously, it's got to translate from high school to college. That's with any prospect. We know that. 5-star might not develop as quickly as a 3-star does. We know that. But this group has a chance to be special. And, you said it before we even started recording, you really like this class. We'll talk about the offense later in the week, but I know that they're ranked 9th or 10th in all of the rankings by all the various sites, but I think this group has a chance to reset this defense. And, again, maybe not next year in 2023, but going forward the next couple of years, I think you're looking at some really, really strong players for this team.
Can we put to rest the worries that Wes Goodwin might not be able to recruit? I mean, he did a nice job to keep a lot of last year's class together and to find some guys who really made some things happen. Wade Woodaz was one of the later commitments to that class, and boy, did he blossom like crazy. I think this defensive staff setup, and it starts with Goodwin and Kahn at the top, sure seems to be intact as far as getting talent into the program.
Obviously, Coach Reed, we talked about him. Coach Eason was a big addition for sure. I like the defensive staff. Again, I had some worries through the season. There were some issues, I think, defensively that we saw with this group. But, moving forward, things look pretty good. Man, Wade Woodaz, what a talent he became by the end of last year. And again, there's a guy who last season looked like a throw-in, right? There were some people, he's just a throw-in commitment. He's not going to be a starter. And then look how he played throughout the season and really had a couple of games where he looked like one of the best players on the field. So I think if anything, you can trust Dabo Swinney and his staff in his recruiting. And, they're not going to hit on everybody. Nobody does. But they're going to get enough talented players to keep this program rolling.
I think we'll see a lot more TJ Dudley next year as well, another linebacker from last year's class, and that's going to only solidify things from that group. I'm talking all these guys up, but does anyone jump out at you as maybe sort of an unsung hero, someone who maybe the people who do the national, rankings of classes by school, maybe they're overlooking him a little bit and can expect more from him as a Clemson Tiger than maybe some people say?
I think you look at, Shelton Lewis. I do. Again, he's the lowest rated defensive recruit if you consider Kelly not a defensive recruit. And we'll see what he is. There's been some talk about him being a receiver. Jeremy Johnson said he thinks he's a receiver at the next level. But Shelton Lewis, I think, is much better than his grade and his ranking and all that kind of stuff. So, he's 5'11", he's about 170. But I think he could really come in and maybe not the first year, but after the second or third year, I think he could really add something to this team. Remember Ryan Carter? I mean, people talked about Ryan Carter like he was nothing. And then by the end of his career, he was a huge piece of the puzzle on defense. So I think you could see a guy like that. On the defensive side, I can't wait to see Mike Reed get his hands on Shelton Lewis and see what he can become.
Well, and you just have to trust Mike Reed's talent evaluation, right? I mean, look how many guys he's brought in through the years who have just been fabulous, and again, maybe not right away, but certainly became that. And even a kind of undersized guy, I mean, Nate Wiggins, not the largest individual that you're going to see line up at corner, but boy, has he just blossomed as the season went on. Took some lumps mid-year and early on, but figured it out, applied the lessons, applied the knowledge that he picked up from it. And I think a lot of that comes back to the coaching and how the coaches help them not just have a short memory, as you say, in regard to keeping your confidence, but also apply the lessons from that and find the positives that they should have been doing that they then can do and make sure that they're productive moving forward. Just a ton of respect for Mike Reed. Really glad he's part of the Clemson program. One of the best assistants that Dabo Swinney's brought in through the years, I'd say.
I think he's done a terrific job, again, developing talent, evaluating talent, and you see his guys playing in the NFL and what they've accomplished at Clemson, what they were at Clemson, what they started as at Clemson, and how they got better. I think he's done a terrific job.
Well, signing day is December 21st. That is a week from Wednesday as we record this, so 9 days out from when we're putting all this together. Next episode, we will talk about offense, and the headline there might be quarterback Christopher Vizina, but we'll also get into some other things. Clemson's still seeking a running back. Might get one midweek this week, might get another on signing day, so they got a couple of shots there to add to that room. We will run through the offensive linemen. All three current commits are projected to enroll early, and then the wide receivers. You mentioned Myson Tink Kelly, who might be counting in that wide receiver room, and several other guys as well. So lots more to talk about in that next episode. Until then, if there's any news in the transfer portal, we will have it for you on Twitter at Clemson Kickoff. We're also on Instagram at Clemson Kickoff if you want to follow us there. Our homepage, clemsonkickoff.com. Anytime you might forget that we are actually lining up and playing Tennessee at the end of the month, we've got that right there. We've talked in some previous episodes about that game coming up. You can catch our archive there. All our episodes from the past will be right there. And be sure to subscribe on youtube.com/Clemson Kickoff. Be sure to follow us on the major podcast apps, whichever one's your favorite. Well, until next time, I'm Bill Zimmerman.
I'm Daniel Shirley. Go Tigers.